Hey guys, I'm Little Art Demon and welcome to my channel. And thank you for clicking on this video. Today we'll be exploring the different steps I use to render and add textures to my drawings. I love to add a little texture sometimes because I don't like when my drawings look really flat. And there will be a few different techniques, so I hope at least one of them will be helpful. But before we get started with the video, I'd like to thank all of you that voted for my animatic in the Good Omens Got Through Talent. It was super fun to participate. If you want to watch the animatic, it's on the channel and I'll leave the video in the card. I find it very happy and cute, and if you want to watch the full contest, it's all available on Tandaria's channel, which I'll also link on the card. Everyone that participated was incredible, so you should definitely check it out. And now, before we get started with the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. There are new videos every Wednesday and shorts every day, and I'd love for you to be here too. And now let's get started with the video. As you can see, we aren't starting with the usual blank canvas today. I already made a drawing. I'm just showing you the time-lapse, which I know doesn't have the best quality, but that's the best the app can do. But this will be our base for today. As you can see, it's just the line art and the flat colors. I already added a little bit of blush and a gradient on the eyes just to get it done, but let's start then. There will be 4 steps, but a few of them are kind of optional sometimes. The first one is an essential step to most drawings, I would say, and it's also the longest, so let's take it slowly because there's a lot to cover. And this step is shading. If you've watched any of my videos, you've probably seen how I do this, and I've been doing it the same way for a little while. I do change it occasionally, so let me show you a few different ways. And the secret is that we are actually going to use all of them at once. For starters, I usually pick a purplish pink color for the shadows and the yellow for the highlights. But these colors can change depending on the setting of your piece. And there are a few different ways to shade. You can do cell shades, which means the shadows are a solid shape, or you can blend it out for a soft shading effect. In real life, both exist simultaneously, and if you're looking for a more realistic technique, you'll probably have to use both. I can show you an example from a drawing that I made over a year ago. I was trying to make the shading of the face look more detailed, and as you can see, especially on the nose and right cheek, there are places where the shadow is almost not blended at all, where other places it is very blurred out. But this isn't a tutorial for that in specific. As you can see on the drawing, I'm blocking out the parts where the shadows will go, and as you can see, I'm separating different sections in different layers. But this will be helpful for the next step, and I'll show you why in a second. Now that we have all those shapes drawn, let's duplicate the layers, and to each of the duplicated layers, we'll apply the Gaussian blur. You don't need to blur it a lot, a few pixels is usually okay, unless you're working on a really big canvas. Now that we have all those, we need to merge them in a way that in the end we have one layer that has the blur effect and another that doesn't. Starting with that last one is easier because you just need to delete the overlapping parts. It's very simple. For the blurred ones it's similar, but I find it a little bit more intricate. But this is where the separate layers come in handy. For example, where the arm is, there's a part that isn't shaded, but there's a shadow on the arm behind it. If you were to blur the merged layer, that shadow would bleed through this shape and it wouldn't look as crisp. Is it probably just me overthinking on the details? Yes, it is. But it's also a part that I enjoy doing and I won't stop being meticulous. And after that is done, you just need to set both layers to multiply and lower the opacity until you're happy. As you can see, the layers look good individually, but I think that when they're both there, it just adds a little bit extra something to the drawing. Now, depending on your piece, you may want to add light or more shadow. The technique will be the same for both situations. You'll block the shapes in separate layers, copy and blur them with the Gaussian blur, then erase the extra parts before merging the layers together. But I'll show you how to do both at the same time. I'm starting with the lights, as you can see the yellow, and I repeated the whole process. After it's done, you can set these 2 layers to add and adjust the opacity. This is the way to add light, but if you want a darker piece, you can select one of these layers. Let's say you start with the blurred layer. You'll select the opacity and then invert it. Then you'll create a new layer, and with the paint bucket on the purple color, you'll fill it and it should give you the complementary shape of the highlights. Then just repeat for the second layer and you're done. Just need to set them to multiply now. Here you can see the 2 versions side by side. I think the harsh lines together with the blended shapes gives a nice texture to the drawing. You can of course use different brushes, I just prefer to use the same I use for the line art. And we are almost done with this step. You can actually stop here if you want, but if you want to add that cherry on top, I'll show you 2 different details. They are both very simple. For the first one, I'm going to use a gradient tool with just one color. I'll create a new layer, and with the purple, I'll make a shadow coming from the opposing side of the light, in this case, the right hand corner. Then in another layer with the yellow, I'll make a gradient on the opposing direction. Set the purple to multiply and the yellow to add, adjust the opacity, and there you go. Very simple, but I think it does change a little bit. And the other detail is to grab a blue, and in a new layer set to hard light, you'll add a little bit of blue in the opposing side of the light source, so in the shadows. This will add a reflective light, and I love how it looks, but I forget to add it so often. I always forget to add this little bit of blue, but it just makes a huge difference. It's so simple and I forget it. But now you have the harder part out of the way, and you can of course experiment with different brushes and techniques, but having the blurred and hard shapes at the same time adds a really nice texture. I really like it personally. But moving on to the next step now, for this you'll need a copy of the color part of your drawing. What I do is put everything in a folder and then copy and paste. It will create a single layer of the folder. Copy it a couple of times, but for now keep that hidden. You will now pick your favorite texture brushes. These are the ones that I use the most for this part because they have really nice textures. You'll create 2 new layers where you go over the whole drawing with those brushes. One of these layers will have the shadow and the other will have the light. So if you want to focus one layer more in a certain spot that you think needs to be darker or lighter, go for it. But let me give you a tip. Try not to make these layers super opaque. I find it that if it is mostly filled, it doesn't have the same effect. Now you'll grab the color layers that we copied before and you'll select their opacity. Then delete the extra textures that's outside. Then with those same color layers you'll clip them to the texture ones, like you're seeing on the screen. Now you'll make 2 new layers, one of them filled with purple shading color and the other with yellow highlight color. Clip them to their respective layer, but before merging set those to multiply and add. Adjust the opacity a little bit, but don't worry if they are looking too dark or too light, they're meant to look like that. After you merge the clipping layers you'll put them under the line art and you can set them again to multiply and add. After adjusting the opacity, that part is done. And now we can move on to my favorite, adding texture and color. For this, I usually use one of these brushes. One of them is a watercolor brush and the other isn't. They're a little bit different, but the texture is the same. What matters is that now you'll pick a few different colors. I usually go from pink to blue in a saturated color. Just cover the whole drawing with it until the layer covers the whole canvas. It doesn't need to be opaque in this stage because you'll copy the layers and merge it a few times until it is. You'll have something like this by the end of that process. You can keep this layer on top of everything, including background, and just set the layer to soft light. Adjust the opacity as you wish and you'll have something like this. I like the texture it adds, but I also love the colors, it makes the drawing look very dreamy. And we can move on to the next step. This one is very simple, you just need to pick the line art brush and add some highlights in white. I like to add them in the eyes and also in some edges of shapes. Usually on the parts that are highlighted, but not necessarily. Something you can also do with the same brush in a smaller scale is draw individual hair strands. This looks better if you are drawing in a close-up because in that situation you can see more details. But just a few hair strands look great. And both these layers go above the line art. It's a very simple process, it's just this. And for the last step we have something even more simple and easy to do. You'll need to export your drawing as an image and import it as a layer. This is better than just merging all your layers because you may want to change something afterwards. But after having that layer, you'll use the blending tool to blur the edges of the drawing. I don't do this often as it works better in some drawings than others, but just keep in mind where you want the main focus of the drawing to be. That part you keep as it is, and the parts that are further away get slightly blurred. You don't need to blur it a lot unless it's part of your drawing concept, but a little bit of blurring looks cool. And there you go, just need to sign it and it's done. So thank you so much for watching, I hope this was helpful. And if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and comment if you want any more tutorials. I don't know if they are confusing, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments too. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more videos, and I really appreciate you being here with me today. So thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!